Hey everybody, this is Wild and Woolly Game coming to you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere, to bring to you today a tutorial on combat awareness with a focus on target prioritization. What will I be going over this video? I'll be going over in this video the three principal tenets of combat awareness, how to stay alive for longer and get more frags, kills per life, and also go over again target prioritization. So, just to begin, I wanted to remind you to like, comment, subscribe. It means a ton to me, especially if you want to see more content like this. It's what motivates me to do it, and also it helps more content to be shown to more people. That being said, let's get into the match here. So, as you'll see here, you have the KI 100, I'll go into my view just so you can see. And what I'm doing constantly is panning around my camera just to make sure there are no enemies near me, which is especially important in a large lumbering plane like the BF-110, because it's not as maneuverable and you're not going to be able to get away from as many fighters with it as you might in a P-47, a P-51, or a BF-109. So, the first thing I do is I go for this KI-100. It's a pretty obvious one. He's closest. He is presenting a clear danger to my team, albeit kind of a lumbering, stupid danger. So after that, again, clear danger. You go for the BF-109 because he's closest, and even though he's a more difficult target, he's also an easy target. He will not take as much damage and thus will die easily as I get the kill here. So that gets into my first point, though, with the three tenets regarding combat awareness, and these are in order of importance, with number one being you always want to make sure that you know the distance of your enemy. So distance is hugely important when it comes to combat awareness, as you know, if you see somebody who's 10 kilometers away, you will not prioritize with them as somebody who might be 2.5 or 2 kilometers away, or the equivalent in miles. Number two, make sure that you know their speed and the direction in which they're traveling. If you see somebody who's 2 kilometers away, who's moving away from you, and then 3.5 kilometers away, who's moving towards you, you're more likely than not, unless the guy who's 2 kilometers away starts making a turn, you will be going for the one who is 3.5 kilometers away, because he wants to pick the fight and he'll get to you quicker than you'll get to the guy who's technically at that point closer to you. And number three, prioritize threats. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if there's somebody who has a plane that just has a significant advantage over your plane, or is attacking an ally, or especially is attacking you, you will want to prioritize the attack, I guess you could say, of that plane. And to a point, this is a pretty good example of tenet number two. Distance, or not distance, but speed and direction. So even though the HE-111 is actually closer to me, and the KI-49 is, as you can see, a little bit further, I could go for the KI-49 because he's going to have more time to cross my path and thus get closer to me than the HE-111 before the HE-111 starts taking an outward trajectory and thus starts getting tougher to catch. So theoretically speaking, I could go for the KI-149 and intersect with him, I guess you could say at a right angle, to the point where he's closer to me once I start engaging with him than the HE-111 would be. But you also have to take into consideration who's a bigger threat. And threat also, there's a consideration regarding that insofar as who's being shot at. So if you ever notice, especially at low BRs, a lot of the time bombers will have trains of fighters behind them. Those bombers to you are no threat, and you should really not be going for them, especially because they will die anyway. So this is where it starts to turn. The KI-49, as I said, will get closer to me quicker than the HE-111, as you can see here, and it's not much of a difference, but it is still a difference. And that being said, he will also, I'll be able to stay closer to him than the HE-111, but the big difference is here that the KI-49 has 2 fighters on him now, whereas the HE-111 only has me. So that makes the HE-111 the biggest target priority here. And as you can see here, I just kind of chase him down real quick. The 30mm makes quick work of him, so on and so forth. And that is a decent enough example of kind of using the tenets to, I guess you could say, my advantage. And again, by using these tenets, you will have a higher kill to death ratio, or in this game, a higher frag to death ratio, being that frags oftentimes are considered having kills and assists versus deaths. So as you can see here, what my next move is to kind of get away from the action and survey what's going on behind me. And there's a whole mess of enemy fighters. Now I'm the type of guy to want to just kind of jump into that, so that's what I do. And this is another really good example right here. So you have in front of me a BF-110 here, the Yak-3, and the DB-3. So as I just kind of go through this, the Yak-3 is still the closest, but he starts to turn away. It makes no sense for me to go for him because he's turning away, and thus it will take me longer to get to him than the DB-3. And you're always keep an eye on the backdrop, especially in arcade, but you can do so in realistic and simulator. These sort of things will always, it's just keep an eye on every enemy and just have a clear enough example or clear enough picture in your head of where each enemy plane is, regardless of if they're a fighter, a bomber, an attacker, or whatever. So that being said, now the DB-3 is coming closer to me, right? So you think maybe he's the best target, the biggest threat. BF-110 maybe as well, because he's also gaining. I'm getting pretty close to him. Thing is, the BF-110 is going from the right side of my screen to the left, so that wouldn't make any sense. The Yak-3 is going away from me. The DB-3, even though he's coming towards me, if you can see, he's got a fire. That means he's not a threat anymore. He's got enough damage to internal components where he's just not a threat, and to go for him, especially while he still has some life left in him, his guns probably still work, would be a stupid thing to do. That's not something that you want to do. So from here, the next thing I notice is the fact that, let me just switch back to this view. You have a Spitfire who's actually closest to me insofar as who I'll be able to get to first on this trajectory. And that Spitfire is a huge threat to me, so I'm always keeping my eye on him. This guy in the BF-110 seems like he doesn't want to participate in the fight, so I just kind of leave him alone. And then you see all these planes around me. So typically bombers I don't really prioritize. They're just not as big of a threat to me or my team, but if it's something where my base only has a tiny bit of health left, you always want to go for a bomber. It doesn't really matter if it's a suicide mission or not. Take out that bomber, win the match. That's always the most important thing. So notice how I'm always panning around my camera. I'm always checking where all these planes are, and then I see to the bottom right you have this Japanese A6M3. So he's now my biggest threat because he's got a little bit more maneuverability than even the Spitfire, and if I can take him out, not only can I save my P-47 friend there potentially, but I'll also be able to save myself and any of my less maneuverable allies. So I go for him. I'm not able to kill him, but I do lay a nice shellacking on him. And from here you have a huge amount of fighters, which I just kind of ignore, as you can see, which is, it's not that I wasn't aware of them, it's just I chose to ignore them. Primarily I just wouldn't have gotten a great angle of attack on them, and I knew that there were a few planes over here still, as well as this BF-110 that I decided to ultimately go for. So I'm able to get the kill on the BF-110, which actually makes this risk worth it, I would say. And then you have the Yak-3, and you also have to be aware, you don't want to fall for the trick of starting to line up against the closest enemy or the second closest enemy, whichever one. You want to make sure that you're picking the one that you'll be able to get to coming out of your turn and be able to stabilize quickest against to go in the head on, because most likely that will be your last head on. So I'm able to take out that Yak-3. Sorry for the ultra fast motion, but he eventually kills me. So either way, let's just speed this up a little bit. and I'll give you a nice little video of a nice BF 109 as the outro. So the 3 tenets, and these are the 3 tenets, the 3 principles that will keep you alive for longer and allow you to get more kills, and each time that you fly a fighter. So number 1, remember distance. Distance is almighty. It's the most important thing. Number 2, speed and direction. Those are hugely important, as somebody coming at you from 3.5 or 4 kilometers away will come to you quicker than somebody going away from you at 2 kilometers away. It's obvious, but some people just don't really choose to see that. Always go for the person who you know will get to you quicker, especially if they're in a faster plane. And number 3, threat. Go for the most threatening planes. It might be easy, it might be tempting to go for a pea shooter, P-26 pea shooter in a jet match, but if you have an ally who's got an F-86, an F-100, a MiG of any type on him, save him. It'll help your team, and it'll help your ally, and it'll make your team win a little bit easier. Either way, again, this is Wild and Woolly Gaming coming to you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere, to give you, again, this hopefully useful tutorial on combat awareness and target prioritization. Again, remember, like, comment, subscribe, as it really means a lot to me, and hope to see you guys in the sky. Take care.